I'll be speaking more about this tonight at greater length from the Oval Office. We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are. And so may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, when you spoke to President Trump yesterday.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 23-year-old conservative activist, host of Speechless, the radio show, and right here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, wherever you guys are watching from. Make sure that you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all of that fun stuff. But I must be honest, the topics of today's conversation, today's podcast, and when I do say conversation, I really do mean it. Bring your comments into the chat. I want to see you guys. Say hello. I will bring it onto screen. I am live. Wherever you guys are watching from, please be involved. I'd appreciate it. But today's topic of conversation, it's gonna be an interesting one. We have an absolute unprecedented, and I feel like I say that every other week. We have an unprecedented situation currently. We have an assassination attempt on former President Trump, current frontrunner and presumptive nominee of one of the two major parties, had an assassination attempt on his life last night. And of course, if you follow my channel, if you follow Breakaway USA, you saw me and several others covering for about 2.5 hours, one of which was Ryan Mack, thank you, for over 2.5 hours, talking about what was going on in that situation. Well, I want to give a brief update, and please stay tuned, because not only are we going to live stream the Oval Office footage that will be, I think it's actually pre-recorded too. I think Joe Biden pre-recorded this footage earlier, and we'll talk about that. But I also have an interview with somebody who was at the rally last night. So stay tuned. I'm going to play that. It will also be posted immediately after this live stream, in which you can watch an interview with a volunteer from the Butler, Pennsylvania rally that I did earlier today, that I had to pre-record because he's on other podcasts and doing other things during this time. But earlier today, Joe Biden did announce he was going to be doing an address from the Oval Office. But there's a lot of things since last night that we did learn about when it comes to this entire case. And so I'm going to go through some of those. But I will just put up some different pictures on the screen so you guys can keep an eye on what really, what everybody is seeing right now. And really the entire news media, this is what they are focused on. They're focused on the presidential outlook of Trump. And that's really what I want to focus on. I had a lot of time since last night to think about this entire incident. And if anybody is like me, you had a very melancholy attitude towards this, pensive, sad, sobering in some ways, which as an Irishman, I don't always like those moments, but they are necessary. But I look at things like this and I think to myself, I think, during his 4 years when he was running for president, both in 2016 and 2020, as well as his entire presidency, Donald Trump had one major critique about him, it was, I might like the policy, but he's just not really presidential. He's not really presidential. Well, last night, in this moment, in this picture that we see right here, this is the moment in which Donald Trump shows how presidential he can be, because he was not by no means brash. He wasn't angrily tweeting as some have complained. No, even when fired at, even when shot in the ear with blood coming down his face, he gets up and, seemingly against the best wishes of his Secret Service, fist in the air, stops them, mouths fight, fight, fight. And there's something tremendously beautiful about that, I must say. There is something tremendously beautiful about that. But I do want to go over some of the updates since last night. The first is, and I want to apologize because on my live stream last night, we misquoted who the killer was, or not killer. Well, he is a killer, but the attempted assassin was. We said it was one man because that's what the rumors were coming out. Well, it was confirmed today that law enforcement rapidly began investigating the shooter, who the FBI has identified as 20-year-old male Thomas Matthew Crooks. Police raided Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, home of Crooks on Saturday night. According to neighbors, Federal Election Commission records show Crooks to be a donor of Act Blue, the progressive donation clearinghouse. However, he was also reported to be a registered Republican. Leaders from around the world have expressed their shock at the attempted assassination, with even Prime Minister Netanyahu and Argentinian President Javier Milei and others reacting to the shooting, decrying political violence. A bipartisan pair of lawmakers, Reps Richie Torres and Mike Lawler, Democrats and Republicans respectively, both out of New York, plan to introduce legislation to increase Secret Service production for presidential candidates. Melania Trump has issued a statement today on the attempted assassination of her husband. The former First Lady thanked law enforcement and expressed sympathy for the victims of the shooting. She wrote that when she, quote, watched that violent bullet strike my husband, I realized my life and Barron's life were on the brink of devastating change. She called the gunman a monster who quote, recognized my husband as an inhuman political machine. She asked for Americans to reunite and ascend above the hate. Trump will arrive at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I believe actually tonight. I think originally it was supposed to be tomorrow, but then he canceled all of the changes that he had originally made and has just arrived. If I am to check correctly, somebody in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he actually did just arrive in Milwaukee. Absolutely amazing. Raven, thank you for joining. If you wouldn't mind telling everybody that I am live, that would be great. I might even text Ty Smith here soon. But along with that, a Trump-authorized fundraiser for victims and families impacted by the failed assassination attempt on the former president has surpassed $2 million. So people are raising money for the victims. President Joe Biden said he has ordered a thorough and swift independent review, which is part of that full C-SPAN clip. If we can get to it, I will play the entirety of it. Thomas Matthew Crooks, the 20-year-old man who attempted to assassinate Trump, carried explosives in his car, according to law enforcement. Police also found suspicious packages near Crooks's body after he was killed by law enforcement at his home in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. A local police officer reportedly confronted Thomas Crooks moments before he fired multiple rounds from a rifle at Trump. The officer reportedly climbed onto the roof of a building near where Trump was speaking and saw the would-be attempted assassin, but climbed back down after the shooter aimed his weapon at the officer. Insane. Even a local police officer was just moments away from even potentially stopping this, and they did not. There's a lot to say about this, and while many people are speculating and discussing about the shooter, a person I really want to talk about and I want to give reverence to is Corey Comparatore. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he is the victim. He is the person who, nobody has said this really. I haven't seen anybody saying this, but essentially took the bullet for Trump. This man died, and he's been described by friends, family, and even the Pennsylvania governor as a hero. I want to take a look and listen to what the Pennsylvania governor said earlier today about the fatality that was actually shot and killed at the Trump rally yesterday. Let's watch this.
We lost a fellow Pennsylvanian last night, Corey Comparatore. I just spoke to Corey's wife and Corey's two daughters. Corey was a girl dad. Corey was a firefighter. Corey went to church every Sunday. Corey loved his community. And most especially, Corey loved his family. Corey was an avid supporter of the former president and was so excited to be there last night with him in the community. I asked Corey's wife if it would be okay for me to share that we spoke. She said yes. She also asked that I share with all of you that Corey died a hero, that Corey dove on his family to protect them last night at this rally. Corey was the very best of us. May his memory be a blessing. Last night was shocking for this community and for this Commonwealth, and I know for this country. Political disagreements can never, ever be addressed through violence. Disagreements are okay, but we need to use a peaceful political process to settle those differences. This is a moment where all leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity, where all leaders need to take down the temperature and rise above the hateful rhetoric that exists and search for a better, brighter future for this nation. It's the work that I try to do every day here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that's the work that falls to each and every American right now. So I ask that you join me in prayer for the 2 Pennsylvanians who are in critical condition.
Absolutely. I know that it might not seem like much when I might do something like what I'm about to do, because I'm sitting here alone in my studio, and you guys might be sitting alone watching this. But I do want to do just a brief moment of silence for the man that passed away. Take this as a moment to reflect and pray, not only for him, his family, but also those that are in critical condition. Just briefly, moment of silence for them. God bless them. God bless them. It is incredibly saddening, disheartening, worrying to see what took place yesterday. If anybody heard me earlier discuss the fact that I do have an interview with somebody who was there yesterday, I will play that. It'll likely come after the Biden speech from the Oval Office. We're going to cover that, but I want to get on my soapbox here for a moment. I have never had an assassination attempt on my life. I've never been at an event that's had something like that. To a much lesser degree, though, I have been a victim of political violence. And that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot. And I haven't told anybody I've been thinking about this. This is the first time I'm talking about this, seriously. Even the people closest to me. But this is something I've been thinking about a lot about in the last day. When I was a freshman at Illinois State University, some of you may know if you follow this show, I was assaulted by a professor for doing work with Turning Point USA. I've told the whole story before. I don't seem to have time for it right now. Maybe later in the show I can rehash it. I know it's plenty of different places all around on my channel. But that's what I think about. People want to act like this instance, which is a boiling point. We've hit a really, really shocking and hard time. A point as to which I'm not surprised, but I really didn't think I would see. But it's been boiling. It's been heating up. I am not the only one. When I was physically assaulted by a professor at Illinois State University back on Veterans Day in 2019, I remember it like it was yesterday. That day is etched in my mind for the rest of my life. Anybody who's been through something traumatic like that knows how that is, just as much as I know yesterday, Donald Trump, all of those events, or everything that happened at that event is etched into his mind for the rest of his life. We've gotten here, and not to say that people on the right have not committed acts of violence against people on the left for what they believe in, but in the last probably about decade, it's been heating and heating up where the left commits far more acts of violence in the political sense than those on the right. And I don't necessarily have the numbers on it. If I'm totally 100% wrong, I will issue a serious statement, but I'm willing to put my money on it that Donald Trump ignited something in 2016. A true, honestly, war of some kind between good and a sense of evil. Not that everybody on the left is evil. That's not what I'm saying. But you look at how people respond. I don't know if you've ever been around somebody or a liberal like I have. When you tell them that you're a conservative and you stand strong on your convictions, it's almost as if a switch flips in their brain to the point of which they become a new person, to where they're almost possessed by some evil, demented spirit, to where they act in a way that they normally would not, that their rational side of their brain is turned off and they act explicitly based on the emotion that has been torn and squeezed and pressed deep into their brain this idea that anybody who happens to hold certain beliefs, those that align with the conservative movement, are in some way Hitler-esque, that I am some kind of a fascist, a deeply evil individual, because for some reason, that is what the left has done. And this is not to take any blame away from he who pulled the trigger against Donald Trump. However, it's important to note that when you call your political opponents deplorables, rednecks, hicks, idiots, derogatory terms, all the way to the point of which at one point it started off with fascist or like Hitler, and has now become literally Hitler. Yes, we are going to get to a point in which political violence seems to be the culmination, almost seems to be the goal of those who pushed that. I mean, like, look at this. This is from the New Republic magazine that was just published within the last few weeks. You have things like this. How would you expect somebody to react if somebody firmly believed that Donald Trump was literally Hitler? That this was actually Donald Trump? Do you think that somebody might not try to do something? I mean, heck, even the New York Times today, if we look up the New York Times, I can show you. The New York Times today ran this piece. The day after Trump's attempted assassination, or the attempt against his life, they ran this page in their print. He failed the tests of leadership and betrayed America. Voters must reject him in November. Now, I'm willing to bet that the New York Times already had these printed for their Sunday edition before last night happened. I'm willing to bet it. But it also could have been a decision in which they quickly said, do not let that out. Do not let that out. But they did anyways. And that's how I know when we have these calls, such as the one I'm about to play for Joe Biden, for unity. And from whatever he's about to say at this press conference, which I do want to point out, so out of the New York Post, Biden, 81, announced plans for a formal primetime address during his brief afternoon remarks, which we're about to watch those remarks in the White House Roosevelt Room. He said, quote, "I'll be speaking more on this tonight at greater length from the Oval Office." Biden condemned the Saturday afternoon attack with Trump's rally. Trump's rally is sick. I'm hearing, I don't know if it's off. I don't know if I'm wrong on this one, but I had heard that that this address from the Oval Office would be recorded. I do not know if that's true, but it is also worth noting that he has only delivered just 2 other formal evening addresses from the Oval Office during his presidency. And so this is definitely a noteworthy event of his presidency. But I do want to take a look and a listen at this, at his full address from just earlier this afternoon. We're going to talk about it, and then we will keep an eye on when Biden will actually speak from the Oval Office soon. Let's take a look and a listen to this clip right here.
Good afternoon. Last night, I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering. And we had a short but good conversation. Jill and I are keeping him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. He was a father. He was protecting his family from the bullets that were being fired. And he lost his life. God love him. We're also praying for the full recovery of those who were injured. And we're grateful to the Secret Service agents and other law enforcement agencies and individuals who risked their lives literally for our nation. As I said last night, there is no place in America for this kind of violence, or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. It's not who we are as a nation. It's not America. And we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all, but nothing is important than that right now, unity. We'll debate and we'll disagree. That's not going to change, but we're going to not lose sight of the fact who we are as Americans. Look, Vice President Harris and I were just briefed in the Situation Room by my Homeland Security team, including the Director of the FBI, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, the Director of the Secret Service, my Homeland Security Advisor, the National Security Advisor, and we're going to continue to be briefed. The FBI is leading this investigation, which is still in its early stages. We don't yet have any information about the motive of the shooter. We know who he is. I urge everyone, please, don't make assumptions about his motives or his affiliations. Let the FBI do their job and their partner agencies do their job. I'm instructed that this investigation be thorough and swift, and the investigators will have every resource they need to get this done. Look, as this investigation continues, here's what we're going to do. First, Mr. Trump, as a former president and nominee of the Republican Party, already receives a heightened level of security. And I've been consistent in my direction to the Secret Service to provide him with every resource, capability, and protective measure necessary to ensure his continued safety. Second, I've directed the head of the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republican National Convention, which is scheduled to start tomorrow. And third, I've directed an independent review of the national security at yesterday's rally to assess exactly what happened. And we'll share the results of that independent review with the American people as well. And finally, I'll be speaking more about this tonight at greater length from the Oval Office. We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are. And so may God bless you all and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, when you spoke to President Trump yesterday, what did he tell you, sir?
Mr.
President,
shifting our campaign strategy, Mr. President, do you regret?
So obviously you can hear reporters in the background there trying to ask questions unsuccessfully. I think it's important to note something that's happening here. So yesterday, almost immediately after the assassination attempt, the Biden campaign, as I was told reportedly, pulled all advertisements that were negative against Trump, which is usually the cordial thing to do in an event like this. But along with that, you can notice how they're even using this entire assassination attempt to try to bolster Biden's political optics. Now, I'm, of course, not on his campaign team. I don't know everything. But what I do know is that isn't it odd that Biden, who doesn't usually do that many addresses like this, he has the pretty bad, better than expected, but still pretty bad press conference Thursday night. Saturday night, Trump has the assassination attack on him last night. Biden comes out, gives about a 3-minute speech with minimal to no flubs. He comes out earlier today. Every time he comes out, there is a headline that says Biden about to address Trump assassination attempt. So Biden comes out last night. Does okay. Biden comes out this morning. Does okay. Now he's going to speak from the Oval Office, looking very, very presidential. We'll see how it goes. We'll review it here. Isn't that interesting? Biden, who almost never talks to the press, does very few addresses, and when he does, they're oftentimes longer than 3-ish minutes, and usually pretty terrible, is now making all of these speeches. Look, to some extent, I can't blame the guy. I mean, you're in a failing campaign. Last night practically solidified the win for your opponent. And you're trying to salvage the best you can. I mean, that's really what it seems. That's what it looks like to me. That's what it truly looks like, is that it looks like there's a significant level of political posturing here from his team. And that's what I think tonight is all about. That's what I really think is I don't think that any of this is about unity as he calls for. I don't think this is about the political violence. And I think that's the worst part about this is it's one thing to be political posturing on the opportunity. Understandable to some extent as a political scientist and as somebody who studies campaigns, has worked on campaigns. It's probably something I would advise in that situation too. However, are we also just going to ignore the fact that Just a few days ago, I see somebody posted it in here. Just a few days ago, he said something like he's got Trump in the bullseye. Has used multiple instances. I mean, even many Democrats have called for Trump's Secret Service to be decreased. Is because and there was even a bill that was introduced, I believe, within the last few years that was an attempt to strip Trump of his Secret Service detail for the purpose or because of his quote unquote like felony convictions, because January 6th, because whatever they could, they wanted to strip him of his Secret Service. Like to some extent, whether or not somebody actually wanted this to happen, planned on it, enabled it, whether or not it's an inside job, whatever, I'm not going to make a comment on that. I have my beliefs, kind of. I think that things are plausible. Anything is possible. But whether or not it's clear that they weren't trying, that nobody who was against Trump was trying to make it harder for something like last night to happen. Nobody didn't not want it to happen. And we saw that from posts galore of people saying, how could you miss? You had one job. People who, this is why I say that in part, as a very, very smart person texted me earlier today, it's good versus evil and very likely in some way spiritual. It absolutely is. I'm going to take a look right now. I have it ready here for when the White House will be going live briefly as President Biden is soon to address the nation. We will cover it here live. I will let it play. I will interrupt as little as humanly possible. I will try my best to just let it play. Make sure you guys stay tuned afterwards, not only for analysis of that, but I also have an exclusive interview with an individual who was a volunteer at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally last night. He's going to give his inside account. That video will also be posted as its own individual video immediately after the live stream is over, where you guys can go watch that entirely. It's a great interview, and so I want to make sure you guys definitely check that out. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. I see some amazing people in the audience right now. Thals Howard, thank you. I don't know if I've ever really seen you here before, unless you have used a different name, but please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. You're right. We definitely need a J13 committee. And that's what I said last night as well. There seems to be a lot of flubs when it comes to this. I spent pretty much all day and the rest of last night thinking about this event and the momentous occasion in the worst way that we're currently living through. To ignore the weight of the last 24 hours would be a disservice to the God-given events that have taken place. And I think it's important to recognize the divine intervention that was just the slightest turn of the head of the former president. That literally saved his life. And to think about, and this is another conversation I had with somebody I'm very close with, to think about what could have happened. And I know it's a sad thought, even more than what actually did happen. But had Trump not turned his head, had a bullet hit, had President Trump lost his life last night, what would be going on right now? Potentially civil unrest, riots, a nation, at least half of it, in mourning, division from the entirety. If that's how many on the left acted when Trump didn't die, by saying, "Oh darn, wish you hit him," then imagine how they'd act if he actually did. Imagine how they will act when he does. Let's be quite frank. Let's be quite frank with ourselves. Let's be honest real quick in the fact to think that Donald Trump and Joe Biden both are likely not to live more than 10 more years. That's not a threat. I'm not, FBI, don't come knocking down my door. It's a fact of their age. They're likely not to live more than 10 more years. Okay, we have Biden here now. Let's take a look and listen.
The need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember While we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors, we're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation. We do not know the motive of the shooter yet. We don't know his opinions or affiliations. We don't know whether he had help or support or if he communicated with anyone else. Law enforcement professionals, as I speak, are investigating those questions. Tonight, I want to speak to what we do know. A former president was shot, an American citizen killed, while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We cannot, we must not go down this road in America. We've traveled it before throughout our history. Violence has never been the answer. Whether it's with members of Congress of both parties being targeted and shot, or a violent mob attacking the Capitol on January 6th, or a brutal attack on the spouse of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, or information and intimidation on election officials, or the kidnapping plot against the sitting governor, or an attempted assassination on Donald Trump. There is no place in America for this kind of violence, or for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high. I've said it many times that the choice in this election we make in this election is going to shape the future of America and the world for decades to come. I believe that with all my soul. I know that millions of my fellow Americans believe it as well. And some have a different view as to the direction our country should take. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, and God forbid, a killing field. I believe politics ought to be an arena for peaceful debate, to pursue justice, to make decisions guided by the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We stand for an America, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. All of us now face the time of testing as the election approaches. And the higher the stakes, the more fervent the passions become.
It's so clear
This places
his
an added
eyes
burden
are
on each of us
fixed on a
to ensure
teleprompter.
that no matter how strong our convictions, we must never descend into violence. The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. You know, that's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets. The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of a would-be assassin. You know, the path forward through competing visions of the campaign should always be resolved peacefully, not through acts of violence. You know, we're blessed to live in the greatest country on earth, and I believe that with every soul, every power of my being. So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit, to make America, think about it. What's made America so special? Here in America, everyone must be treated with dignity and respect, and hate must have no safe harbor. Here in America, we need to get out of our silos, where we only listen to those with whom we agree, where misinformation is rampant, where foreign actors fan the flames of our division to shape the outcomes consistent with their interests, not ours. Let's remember, here in America, while unity is the most elusive of all goals right now, nothing is more important for us now than standing together. We can do this. You know, from the beginning, our founders understood the power of passion. So they created democracy that gave reason and balance a chance to prevail over brute force. That's the American we must be. An American democracy where arguments are made in good faith. An American democracy where the rule of law is respected. An American democracy where decency, dignity, fair play aren't just quaint notions, but living, breathing realities. We owe that to those who come before us, to those who gave their lives for this country. We owe that to ourselves. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren. Look, let's never lose sight of who we are. Let's remember we are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. God bless you all. May God protect our troops.
Interesting words from the President of the United States. If you guys noticed, that was just about,
Forward from here.
let's go, where did this start? I just want to make sure.
I want to speak to you tonight about.
So we're starting at about, so we got about 6 minutes, just about 6 to 7 minutes is how long that was, which fits my idea that this is a lot of political posturing, that the entire purpose of this is not to actually discuss the seriousness of situations or talk about political violence and what actually caused it. He starts off by saying that, we don't know the motives yet. You can't blame me yet. I'm just feeble old Joe Biden, and we don't know whether or not this guy was actually we don't know if this guy was a liberal or a Republican because he claims to be a registered Republican. We also see that it's claimed that he donated to a progressive PAC. I think there was also a video circulating on Twitter potentially of him saying that he hates Donald Trump. If I can find that real quick, I will bring it up. Thomas Crooks was his name. There's also reports that he was in a BlackRock commercial while he was in high school. He was just briefly featured in it. There's very little on this man. It's very interesting to point out the fact that this seems to be the only 20-year-old who has no social media, has very little about him out there whatsoever. But he does have things like this. We could take a look. This is Thomas Matthew Crooks, who is the person that's claimed to be and is allegedly the shooter of the attempted assassination. This is the man with the unkempt hair. This is what claims to be maybe his Twitter. I don't know, but then we have videos like
Thomas
this.
Matthew Crooks. You got the wrong guy. My name is Thomas Matthew Crooks. I hate Republicans. I hate Trump. And guess what? You got the wrong guy.
So now I have some people saying that this was a lookalike. This is the thing, is we really don't know all that much. I'm going off what I can trying to find answers for you guys. But I want to get back to what Biden had to say. I wanted to give you the best that I could on the shooter. We still don't know all that much. As things come out, make sure you guys subscribed. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel so that you can consistently find all the news that I can find. Once things are absolutely confirmed, I will ensure to share the confirmed news and I consistently apologize if anything that I say is verifiably false. I will apologize for it, just like I did with the shooter with the claims of one of the potential shooters last night, who it turned out not to be. But what I want to talk about when it comes to Biden here and what he had to say in this, I want to talk about, so he talks in a lot of this about, it's all about the ballot box. It's all about the ballot box. And then he gives his own brief little campaign speech. The purpose of this Oval Office address, so the purpose of an Oval Office address usually is to quell fears. is it's supposed to be the reason why you do a speech in the Oval Office, at least what I would say in terms of the political reasoning is you're doing it from the place of which everybody knows the Oval Office is the president's office. You're not doing it from a press briefing room. You're not doing it from the White House lawn where it might be a little bit more informal or celebratory. You're doing it where the work gets done, the Oval Office. And so it usually is supposed to be a place in which it's like you're hard at work something. That's at something that's you're trying to show people that. And so he does it from the Oval Office with to almost call back to instances in which he quelms fears. He makes people feel good about whatever just happened. But then you take a look at points like, let me see if I can find the exact part. But let's look at this part. I think this is almost exactly where it starts. Listen to this.
I've said it many times that the choice in this election, we make in this election, is going to shape the future of America and the world for decades to come.
So now he starts talking about the election. It's about the election now. He'll always try to relate it back to the political violence, discussion, debate, democracy, blah, 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 blah. But it's about the election. Listen, keep listening. And I also want to point out, because some people might be like, oh, well, Kevin, you're not talking anymore about how bad of a speaker is. You seem to be able to understand and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm noticing there are instances in which there's weird things he's doing with his hands. He is obviously staring down the teleprompter. He's reading it verbatim. I doubt he even wrote any of this, but I have to act in good faith as if he did. And so I'm going to do that. But I want to just point out that he's talking about the election now. This is not about quelling fears. This quickly became a campaign speech. Keep listening.
I believe that with all my soul. I know that millions of my fellow Americans believe it as well. And some have a different view as to the direction our country should take. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, and God forbid, a killing field. I believe politics ought to be an arena for peaceful debate, to pursue justice, to make decisions guided by the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We stand for an America, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. All of us.
Oh, really? Then why do you have trannies with their tits out on the White House lawn? How decent is that, Joe? You talk about wanting, this is about the ballot box. This is about debate. This is about democracy. However, you run ads and constantly have interns tweet about Project 2025, which is something that Donald Trump has said he doesn't know anything about and does not necessarily endorse, even has said that there's things that he disagrees with in it. You constantly put out things that say, oh man, Donald Trump is going to ban abortion federally, even though he is on record multiple times, to my dismay, saying that he's going to leave it up to the states. He would not sign a federal abortion ban. So you come out now saying that it's about honest debate, that you solve it at the ballot box, that it's that we should have civility in politics. But all you do is constantly, well, all your interns do and your staff does is constantly fearmonger with actual lies. With actual lies. It's not hyperbole. It's not being like, it's not even coming out and saying, well, I don't believe Donald Trump when he says that, because it'd be one thing if you came out and said, I don't believe Donald Trump actually means that he's not going to ban abortion. I think that he actually will. You're not even saying that. No, you're coming out and just basically and absolutely negating everything that he says and just says, it's just that he's going to ban abortion federally. Doesn't even recognize the fact that he says he's not going to. But now it's about debate. Now, after the man gets literally shot. Now, I don't know if Biden is blatantly disingenuous or if it's just his staff that writes everything for him to say. But it's also important, once again, to recognize that this is a campaign speech. This, honestly, I would argue that this violates the Hatch Act. The purpose of this speech was a campaign speech. It was not about quelling fears. It was not about utilizing the office to actually be a president for a moment. No, this is a campaign speech. This violates, in my opinion, the Hatch Act. He discusses the conventions. He discusses the campaign trail. He discusses their pitches. I want to find that exact part. I don't remember exactly what minute it was at. But he even says Donald Trump is going to go. This is a violation of the Hatch Act. That's what I would say. I don't remember. If anybody knows the exact timestamp, I could find it at.
And offer their own vision for this country.
That's right here.
This places an added burden on each, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace.
It's right after that part that I was.
All of us now face the time of testing as the election approaches.
So yes, now this is the part where it abundantly clear becomes a campaign speech, a violation of the Hatch Act. Watch more.
And the higher the stakes, the more fervent the passions become. This places an added burden on each of us to ensure that no matter how strong our convictions, we must never descend into violence. The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week, making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. You know, that's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets.
At the ballot box, not with bullets. That's going to be the constant line that you're going to hear. At the ballot box, not with bullets, blah, blah, blah. And then I get a great question from the Ryan Mack Show. Can the president violate the Hatch Act? I do want to be clear, and I should have been clear when I first said this. Technically, okay, a president cannot. But Joe Biden is so clearly reading off a teleprompter right here. And somebody wrote that. Somebody wrote that speech. And I'm willing to bet it was not Joe. It was not Joe. And so, no, this won't actually go anywhere. He will not get, no one will get prosecuted. No one will even get investigated for a violation of the Hatch Act. But I guarantee you, Joe Biden did not write the speech. A staffer did. And it quickly turns into a campaign speech in the Oval Office. So I believe it's a violation of the Hatch Act by that staffer, not necessarily Joe Biden, because a president technically cannot violate the Hatch Act. But that said, the staffer likely did. And at a minimum, even if not a presidential violation of the Hatch, that is a great, you can see actually, it's interesting. I paused at the perfect time. They're doing the white power symbol right there. You guys can see that? They're doing the white power symbol on the translator for those hard of hearing. They're doing the white power symbol. So the Biden's translator is a racist. But no, after my digression there, this was a political speech. It's so sad. It is so sad to me that even in an instance, they're milking this. Like this, they're, again, can't 100% blame them from a political perspective, but it's still so sad to me that you're coming out and you're trying to be like, this is about democracy. This is about us actually. That's not actually how Biden sounds. I don't know why I made him sound like somebody actually sophisticated, but he comes out and says, this is all about democracy. This is about us restoring unity. This is about us not solving our issues through debate and conversation and not bullets. At the ballot box, not bullets. At the ballot box, not bullets. Everything like that. After you literally say that Trump is a fascist dictator that's going to take over the country and no. It's all about debate. It's all about debate, of course. And then instead of maybe apologizing for some of that rhetoric or even recognizing that rhetoric, he very clearly at the beginning of that, when he discusses the idea of, oh, we don't know this guy's motives yet. What he's saying is, you can't blame me yet. You can't blame my party. You can't blame our violent rhetoric. You can't blame Maxine Waters. And yeah, this clip is from a few years ago, but I'll pull it up here. You can't blame Maxine Waters, which I guarantee all I got to do is just look it up. When she comes out and she says things like this, take a look. When she says things like this, this is a compilation of them.
I will go and take Trump out tonight. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station. You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet. I will go and take Trump out tonight. And if you see any...
No. You can't be mad at Maxine Waters because we don't know his political affiliation yet. We don't know. And you're right. We don't know his motives yet. We don't know necessarily his political affiliation. We know snippets, but we don't know it. We might never know it. But just because we don't know that doesn't mean we can't also recognize and use this as a moment to recognize that this behavior is intolerable. Look, I talk about how bad I think Joe Biden is. I talk about that I think Joe Biden is a threat to the things that this country was founded on. And then I provide evidence as to why that is. But nowhere ever do I say that Joe Biden is literally the next Hitler. Nowhere ever do I say that somebody should, in fact, I will actively say nobody should take out Joe Biden. Not only is it wrong, it seems like a well-placed bottle of water spilt on the right stairs will do that for me. I won't actually do, I'm to be 100% clear, FBI, no one should take out Joe Biden. I actually do believe in the idea of debate and not settling things with physical violence. But we have Democrats on the other side who are in very large positions of power, such as Maxine Waters, who actively threaten the former president. And we have constantly people saying that Donald Trump, I guarantee you, and I said this last night and I still don't know. She meant on a date. That was funny. Ryan Mack. But I guarantee you that Donald Trump has more death threats than any presidential candidate, presidential figure in the history of America. That's my opinion. I'll say I don't have the numbers on it, but I firmly believe it. Why? Why would that be? Why would that be? Look, I'm not going to lie and tell you that he's not a controversial figure. Definitively he is. But at the same time, the opposition, they could easily, there are things to give to give Donald Trump a hard time for. There are things to give him a hard time for. You could easily say, if I was Joe Biden, you want to know if I was Joe Biden, instead of saying Trump is literally Hitler, he's terrible, and then lying on his stances of abortion, lying on the Project 2025 stuff, lying on all of that, you know what I would say? You want to know what I would say? What I would say is simple. Republicans, why aren't you electing a pro-life candidate? Republicans, but Donald Trump is compromising your Christian belief that marriage is between a man and a woman. Republicans, why would you elect somebody who seems to go against some of your beliefs? And I know there's counter arguments to that. There's the discussion of Joe Biden is obviously coming after him with the weaponized Justice Department. He was obviously a very good president for the economy in the southern border. I could make the argument for Trump too. But the thing that really just makes me mad is you have a president right now, Joe Biden, which I'll go back to this, and I'll go back to the phenomenally paused point right there, who his entire campaign is based off lying about Trump when you could come out and have valid criticisms of him. You could. But if you can't win by making those valid criticisms, if you've determined before even attempting it that you can't win by making valid criticisms, so instead you resort to lying and calling him literally Hitler to the point of which it stokes political violence, for which now you have to come out and condemn and pretend like it's not in some way related to your rhetoric, then that means you were never meant to win in the first place. And that's just the truth. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this story, and I'm happy I was able to live stream that as it came up and discuss everything that he talked about. I want to get to some comments here. I also want to let everybody know, if you're watching, to not only do what I consistently say, please like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that. Please, please, please do that. But along with that, stay tuned, because I do have an exclusive interview coming up soon with a volunteer, a Trump campaign volunteer who was at the rally last night, giving his firsthand account of exactly what happened. I'm going to air that. I also have it planned to schedule. It'll post immediately following this live stream, so you can go watch it outside of this as well. And then, assuming there's time after that, I will probably end up covering some other instances of silenced conservatives. We're going to talk about the idea of ideology and how the left recently, and then I overgeneralize for the sake of simplicity, generally has a stranglehold over conservatives, and how it's so important at this moment to stand on our convictions, stand strong within our convictions, and do it not only for the sake of this country, but also for those who truly should be martyred and treated as martyrs. Like the individual, the father, the former firefighter, fire chief, the community servant, the true public servant, Corey, and I butcher his last name, Corey C., the man who, as I would say, took the bullet for Trump last night, and those that were also wounded at the event as well. So let's get to some comments here, and then I will also pull up the video that I have of my interview with the individual, the individual who was at the rally last night. I'm going to make sure I have that kind of squared away and ready. And then let's get to some comments. This is what happens when I produce my own show. Let's take a look at what we got here. So, hey, Nana 6. I don't know if you changed your name or if I just haven't seen you in a while. You might be new. If you're new, anybody who's new, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Please do that. But no matter what, happy to have you here. Let's see. I see a lot of these different comments. He was holding his hands like he was eating an invisible hamburger. He was about to say, I did hear that he was about to say, "Make America Great Again." He probably registered to be a Republican to vote in the primary to go against Trump, potentially back in 2020. Or actually, it would have been, that actually wouldn't be the case. I would usually say you're right, but he was 20 years old, which means that if he registered as a Republican, it would only be, or I guess, I mean, if it was primary for 2024, you might be right for that. Conflicting comments regarding who the shooter was. Like I said, I will keep you updated with that. Thank you, Common Sense, for thanking me. I appreciate that. The only thing I'm scared about is another 4 years of Biden and his laughing sidekick. That really scares me. That is something to be worried about. Maybe about 3 words of it. God bless the troops. Yep, he could have written that. He's afraid he will lose people to the red pill. I think that's the other thing too, is I think that part of the reason why he's going so hard in on the campaigning strategy to use this as a campaigning opportunity is because he knows that he lost points simply by having the assassination attempt last night. He says that he imprisons conservatives with opposing views. Yeah, seriously. Every politician should read the Constitution and quit their lying BS. I think a lot of them read the Constitution, but they only really understand the parts that benefit them. What the hell is Project 2025? Anyways, that's been something I've been doing research on it. I will do a video on Project 2025 where I kind of explain it a little bit more. From what I understand, it's the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative nonprofit, outlined this idea called Project 2025, which is, and the Heritage Foundation is an organization that Trump in some ways has been affiliated with in the past because it is very conservative. And they outlined, here's what we think a good leader should do, and here's what like a conservative leader in Congress as a president should do. And it's definitely more conservative than who Trump is. That's what I understand. Jim, great to see you. Thank you. Everybody keep on commenting. I appreciate it. God was watching out for Trump yesterday. Yes, he absolutely was. Let's see what else we got here. Common Sense laughed at something I said. I appreciate that. Yes, at some point, I believe Biden said that Trump was Hitler, or he said that something along the lines that he was like Hitler, that he was Hitler-esque. He's compared him to Hitler. I know that. Thank you for saying I'm right. You should tell my girlfriend that. Madonna, Deep, Depp. I think he meant Depp. De Niro, Schumer. Many have made threats. Yeah, they have. It's become commonplace. Probably Rob Reiner is another one that's probably has. It's insane. The truth shall set you free. Absolutely. Oh, Nana Six is your mom. Well, thank you, Mrs. Mack, the original Mrs. Mack. I appreciate that. But everybody, please, please, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends. As I mentioned earlier, I do have my exclusive interview with a volunteer from the Butler, Pennsylvania rally. He was there during the shooting. He gives his full account. Like I said, I had to pre-record it because earlier today, because he was doing other appearances, he was doing another podcast and talking with some friends and stuff. And also obviously resting after all the work that he had done. So I want to, I'll bring this up on screen. I will play it immediately following the live stream. It will be posted. I also have other things I will cover in the second half hour, 45 minutes that I'll have after this. So make sure you guys take a look and a listen right here to this interview and stay tuned because we'll be covering Ben Shapiro's congressional testimony after this. So yes, that's 2 me's on the screen. It's 2 more me's than some of you would like to see, but here's this. The country is processing the attempted assassination against former President Trump, and everyone seems to be looking for answers. Well, today we're going to try to get some here on Speechless. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 23-year-old conservative activist. If you like this interview, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all of that. But let's get right on into it. Many of you have probably already seen this video right here. The attempted assassination against former President Trump. And while everybody watches this video and sees it from the tons of different angles that have been posted to social media, viewed on your mainstream media news, maybe even seen on my channel right here, what no one seems to be talking about are the angles and the answers that we can find from the people that actually attended the rally. One of my friends, Danny, who actually happened to be a volunteer through the Trump campaign at the event, has agreed to come on and discuss a little bit about the event, the feelings that happened there, everything under the sun that we could not understand if we were not there. Danny, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Of course. Please just get right on into it. Tell me exactly what was it like leading up to the event? Have you been to a Trump rally before? Was it business as usual? Tell me about that.
So this was my 5th Trump rally, but 3rd Trump rally volunteering. And to be quite frank, the day was very normal. My volunteering position, I was just parking the press cars and checking the ADA parking passes, making sure that cars that were supposed to be in a particular lot got to that lot. And then from there, we went into the site. It was a hot day. My next job was passing out water bottles to a bunch of the overheating adults that were just trying to get through the day. And we essentially wrapped up because we saw the motorcade come in from behind the barns at the fairgrounds. And then from there, it was another about 10, 15 minutes. President Trump finally came on. And being that this is my 5th rally, I wasn't exactly concerned about watching the president too intently, too closely, because I was there to help the event go along smoothly. I wasn't there to just watch the president like many of these other people who witnessed this horrible event did. Mm-hmm. I went to the restroom. There's a permanent restroom building about 100 yards from the stage. And I was in there with a friend because obviously I'm a little red right now because of the sunburn from parking cars all day. I'm like, I want to throw some cold water on my face. So I can still hear the president talking. The doors are heavily ventilated. They're just like slat doors. And all of a sudden, as I'm getting ready to open the door, I hear the first 3 or 4 shots. And like, everything just slowed down in that minute. It was, to be quite frank, it didn't feel real. It was like, is this actually happening? Was that actually a gunshot? But then when I opened the door, the president was on the ground. He wasn't standing. And so in my mind, I'm like, holy crap, the president's just been shot. And I immediately slammed the bathroom door shut and yelled to everybody in the restroom, run out the back door now. And then a Secret Service agent actually flies into the restroom from the back door as well, saying, get out and run back to the parking lot. And from there, you just see the horde of tens of thousands of people just fleeing the scene. And you heard parents yelling for their children. And that was a wake up call that this was real. Like, you heard older ladies, older men who had been overheating all day asking for help. They couldn't run. And it was just the derangement and lunacy that it would take for somebody to commit an act like this. This wasn't just an attack on President Trump. This was an attack on all of us in the America First movement.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know a lot of people are saying that exact kind of idea. You said as you heard the gunshots, it felt like everything slowed down. Can you describe that exact moment, and also the feelings that you noticed from the crowd, from the people that were there? You know what it was like to be at your first, second Trump rally as an attendee. What did it seem like that could be different for the attendees there yesterday?
Well, one, the sweltering heat. The heat made everything a lot more anxious. Everybody was already like, not to like say anything rude about any of the attendees, but it was like everybody was already tired and agitated from waiting in long lines all day long, having to drink warm water that was provided to them in the lines. And now everybody's finally sitting there intently waiting for the president to show up. But once the motorcade arrived, the attitude entirely changes. It was like nobody cared that they had just waited the entirety of the day. And it went to that normal high energy, high like participation from the crowd, chants for USA, chants for Let's Go Brandon. Everything was going like everyone would have expected. But one thing, and I don't want to sound like I'm playing off of the theories that have already gone out there and the observations that have already gone out there, but I noted to a friend while we were standing directly in line with the stage prior to me going to the restroom, that I thought it was odd that there was only 2 Secret Service agents. Or they didn't even have to be Secret Service agents. They could have just been like whoever was contracted to do the oversight for the snipers.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was odd that there was only 2 snipers behind President Trump. Normally, at every other Trump rally I've been to, 360 degrees of coverage. I just thought it was odd that there were so many buildings around. It wasn't just the building that the shooter came from. On the other side of the field, you had bandstands for the fairgrounds. You had hangars for private airplanes that could have been breached as well. And I just thought that was something that was very off. And to the average Trump rally goer, it might not have been as obvious, but it was definitely something noticeable to somebody who's a veteran rally attender.
Yeah, absolutely. And so talking a little bit about what happened after the shot. So obviously everybody saw the video of how Trump was ushered into the black vehicle, got into the hospital as soon as possible. A lot of questions were happening even from people at home in that time. I went live pretty quickly and basically told everybody on my live stream, I have no idea what's going on. We're going to react to this together. We're going to figure it out together as news comes in. What was the vibe like there? I can only imagine with how many questions I had from the comfort of my home. Like, was Secret Service ushering people out? What was the protocol? What were you expected to do as a volunteer?
So essentially what happened was it was a total free-for-all once the shots were fired. Secret Service just started yelling at everybody to get out. It didn't matter if you were an elected official. It didn't matter if you were official staffer that's paid on the Trump campaign. It didn't matter if you were a volunteer. They were yelling at everybody to get out of the venue as quickly as possible. And from that point on, the attitude, even though it was a large crowd of people rushing out and there was the occasional screaming and the occasional like loud yelling, I would say it was overall not the same as like just a stampede. It wasn't a stampede. It was a rushing crowd, but I just thought it was very interesting how the crowd was relatively calm, especially when you watch the videos of the people that surrounded the president himself, how the crowd just fell to the ground, remained calm. And then once everything was clear and they saw the president put up his fist, everybody started yelling like USA and cheering like it was a normal Trump rally again. Like, obviously we just witnessed something very traumatic, but it didn't dissuade the energy behind our movement.
Absolutely. And I think that is definitely something that is worth noting, is that a lot of people, especially in the Trump train, people that are very already pro-Trump, people that would be at this rally, seem to be more energized than ever to vote for the former president. One thing that that kind of started coming out after we knew that President Trump was safe was the primary victim of this shooting. I believe a former fire chief that has been hailed as a hero. Did you see anything about where he was in the stands? I haven't gotten a chance to see and research every single thing about him. But what do you know? Did you see anything firsthand of this man? Any interaction with him, even maybe, or what do you know?
Unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet him. I was, so like I mentioned, I was strictly there as a volunteer. Those bandstands are for people who essentially earn their spot at that rally. They're upstanding community members, they're state senators, they're state representatives, or they're candidates. Just like the first few rows with the front row Joes, you have some of those very important guests as well. I was there to help the event go smoothly, so I was a little bit removed from the situation so far as just being about a football field's length away from the whole thing. Whereas I had friends that I grew up with, friends that I'd met along the campaign trails, either in the gubernatorial election last cycle or whenever I ran for delegate this year. People that I met, people that I knew were right up front on that line and right in front of President Trump or right behind President Trump when the gunman started firing. But unfortunately, I did not get a chance to have any interaction with anybody. But what I can say is the scariest moment was when you opened that bathroom door and you saw the president was not standing up.
Mm-hmm.
That was what was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably had no idea what was going on. You probably thought he could have been shot, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought immediately he had been shot. And whenever we were running out of the facilities, like of the perimeter, to get back to the parking lot, everybody was asking, like, they were just like, did the president just get shot? These were the people that weren't in the perimeter. They were the people that were listening to the rally outside. And it was just like, yes, the president has been shot. Is he alive? We don't know. This was like everybody online. They had a little bit, I would argue that the people online had a better view and perception of what happened in that moment because they were watching 2 steps, 3 steps removed from the situation. Whereas we heard the gunshots, and as soon as the gunshots went off, it was go time for the rest of us. We had to get out of there. And I actually just remember calling my dad as I was helping usher other people out, trying to keep people calm. There were some friends that I was there with that were helping volunteer, and they were, you either get really scared in the situation and nervous and antsy, or you're just like, I need to do what I need to do to get out and get the people around me out as well. And as I was calling my dad, I was simultaneously having to help try to keep one of my friends like, we'll be okay. We got to get to the car. Let's move, let's move, let's move. While also calling my dad, being like, Dad, the president's been shot. And like, I'm okay, but I want you to know that like, whatever you see on television, the president has been shot. And I'm glad that I did because we see the reports that come out from places like CNN and NBC saying president ushered off stage after popping sound, president ushered off stage or escorted off stage by Secret Service after fall. It's like that you would have heard on the television the popping sound. That's not just a fall. Like I was very disgruntled by the legacy media's reporting of the situation.
Yeah, they did a disservice to the American public within that. I want to know a little bit as well. I know that we have a limited amount of time today. You currently go to Penn State, correct?
Yes.
What's your major there, if you don't mind?
I have a double major in history and political science.
That's awesome. So this is like right up your alley then.
Yes, most definitely. And I would actually say it's much more rare to find poli-sci majors that work on the campaign side. A lot of us are interested in the legislative side or in the executive side, but I'm right in the trenches with the America First movement.
No, I get it. I was a poli-sci in my undergrad as well, so I get it. But I wanted to ask in terms of, because you've obviously had a lot of experience. You talked about you're currently a delegate. I assume a delegate for Trump at the RNC.
Unfortunately, I'm not a delegate. So the way Pennsylvania's delegate structure works is you have 3 delegates per congressional district in the state, and you're elected in the primary. So the top 3 go. I came in 4th place by 0.35%.
Oh man,
so I lost by under 0.5%. But nonetheless, I'm still very appreciative of the opportunity to get to do something like that.
That's awesome. You've worked on campaigns before. You said you worked on the gubernatorial back in 2022.
Yes, and I also helped with the Senate campaign back in 2022.
Awesome, with Dr. Oz. That's awesome. Awesome. So you've done a lot of great work. I want to know how you're Everybody, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for recognizing that everything just freezes up on me. As you know, and as well, I will remind you, that entire uninterrupted interview will be totally posted to my YouTube immediately following the live stream conclusion, which we still have more to cover here. We still got at least like 30, 45 minutes more. But I'm going to let you guys finish up that interview right now. There's just a few more minutes right here. My service gets bad. It gets really messed up, but don't worry. We're coming back here right now.
Still very appreciative of the opportunity to get to do something like that.
That's awesome. You've worked on campaigns before. You said you worked on the gubernatorial back in 2022.
Yes, and I also helped with the Senate campaign back in 2022.
Awesome, with Dr. Oz. That's
Yes.
awesome. So you've done a lot of great work. I want to know how your feelings, if they have. I mean, just about 24 hours from the time we're recording this is when this shooting took place, just give or take. How have your feelings and your motivations for voting for President Trump? What was your motivation before, and what is it now? How have your thoughts on this election changed since this shooting and attending and seeing it?
I think Charlie Kirk really encapsulates my feelings whenever he said, "You don't realize how much they hate you." Like, yes, I knew that they've been calling President Trump a dictator and then all of us fascists for supporting him. But it wasn't until yesterday, whenever those gunshots were actually fired, that I fully comprehended just how much they hate us. Because that could have been any one of us right behind President Trump, like that poor father. They will do anything it takes to keep him out of the White House and keep America First patriots from being elected. It's one thing to be an establishment Republican who's just a Democrat light, but it's another thing. They truly hate us. And I'm going to use that on campus this semester whenever I'm trying to flip a Pennsylvania House seat, trying to elect Dave McCormick to the US Senate, and trying to get President Trump elected to the White House.
Man, gives me chills hearing that. I know that feeling, not necessarily from an event like this, but I know that feeling as I was an activist through my undergrad as well. And I'm so happy to hear that, Danny. Any last thoughts? I know you got some other interviews and stuff, other people you're talking to, other people that are going to help fight in this movement. Any last thoughts you have for anybody watching this right now?
Well, the number one thing is, since I'm trying to help flip a state house race here in Pennsylvania, and since I'm trying to help get President Trump more votes here at Penn State, if you are a college student and it is legal in the state in which you reside and you come from a deep red area or a deep blue area, please register to vote at your university to help flip tilt districts to give conservatives an advantage this election cycle.
Absolutely. Well, Danny, thank you so much once again for joining. Do you have anything to plug? Any Instagram, Snapchat, or just any social media that you want people, or anything else to check out?
You can follow me on Instagram. It's just Dan_Kunzelman, or you can follow me on Twitter. It's just also Danny_Kunzelman. I'm not one of those people that have like the weird usernames. It's just my name. You can just look up my name on any social media platform. You'll find me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Danny. God bless you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you guys saw that and everything. I hope you enjoyed that. That was an exclusive interview with Danny, who is a volunteer at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally in which the assassination attempt on Donald Trump occurred. And his account was quite interesting in the fact that he got to see it from a very different perspective than any of us ever could have. And that's the thing that I think is so important about that. Yes, he even admitted he was in the restroom at the point of the shooting, but there's an extra added layer of, I talked with him, obviously many of you just watched. I talked with him about how nobody knew anything. Us at home knew nothing. People there knew nothing. Imagine how much less you knew when you had the visual element taken away. You heard all the chaos. You knew very little. And then when he got the brief second of being able to see what was going on, all he saw was President Trump was on the ground. He heard what sounded like gunshots. President Trump was on the ground, and that's it. The fear. But also, to a certain extent, the very, very interesting reaction that he got. I mean, he also got to see there was a Secret Service agent that quickly came in and said, everybody out, everybody out, everybody out. There is something, while all of us have a feeling on what happened yesterday, there's a feeling that we won't ever understand, and that's what it was like to actually be there. And so I thought it was very interesting to get his perspective, especially as a young conservative activist, which are voices I always like to highlight because they're oftentimes overlooked. So thank you once again, Danny. I doubt he's watching right now, but thank you, Danny, for joining the show. I really do appreciate it. I also wanted to take a moment, as much of this show has been dedicated to what Biden had to say today. I want to point out on one of Biden's biggest fans. And when we talk about young people, there's one person that's an insufferable individual on Twitter, especially. And he's quite clearly paid by the Biden campaign, or maybe it's Act Blue or something, but his name is Harry Sisson. Harry Sisson seems to love Biden more than Biden loves Biden. Harry Sisson seems to love Biden more than Jill loves Biden. I think Harry Sisson would do some very, very Monica Lewinsky-esque things to Biden if given the option. But I always like to see exactly what Biden has to say about things. Harry Sisson has to say about things, because it's always usually like the funniest thing in the world for me to see, because he is usually, pardon my graphic analogy here, but he's usually sucking off the president whatever way possible. Examples of this is if you even go back to what we saw at the press conference just the other night on, I believe that was July 11th. We could see Harry coming up here. President Biden, we all saw it. We all saw the press conference. You know, it wasn't that great, but then this is what Harry had to say.
President Biden just gave an hour-long press conference with no notes, no teleprompter, no knowledge of the questions beforehand, and he executed it perfectly. He got tough questions and gave great answers. He talked in depth about foreign policy and the issues facing the United States. So can we get over this Biden's too old? Can we get over this he's not fit to serve? That is a man who just talked in depth about China, Russia, Ukraine, domestic policy, foreign policy, issues facing the entire world. Are you kidding me? Like, I would love to see Donald Trump try to keep up. I would love to see Donald Trump try to talk about the things that President Biden just articulated at that press conference. So it's time for us, the Democrats, to unite and support President Biden. This is a man who is competent. He's uniquely qualified to be president, and I am excited to vote for him. President Biden.
I can't literally listen to how he says, I'm excited. He's listen to how he ends this. Just like the last 5 seconds. Listen to this.
He's competent. He's uniquely qualified to be president, and I'm excited to vote for him. President Biden.
When he says, I'm excited to vote for him, literally seems like he has a gun pointed to his head. But also, like the rest of it, like Ryan says, he must be high or stupid. But I wanted to give that context so you understand what we're dealing with when we discuss this. And this is how he responded to the Oval Office address. President Biden's Oval Office address was fantastic. It was unifying and strong. As he said, we must turn down the temperature in the country. We as Americans are better than this. President Biden is the leader we need right now, and I'm thankful for him. This guy, I would start a petition, please. Somebody start a petition for me and Harry to debate just Trump v. Biden. Please, somebody start that petition. I would do literally anything. I would do anything to debate this insufferably just weird young man. Harry Sisson. Even that name is just kind of gross. Harry? Who names their kid Harry? That's weird. And then Sisson? Sounds like sissy. Just an absolute idiot. But I just thought it was important to point out exactly. From now on, we're always going to see, because I think it's really fascinating. Every time that I do something on Biden, we're going to do Harry's take. We're going to see what Harry has to say about it, because he seems to be the opposition, and it's quite hilarious to see exactly what he says. So every time we're going to do Harry's take. But that's it for the presidential. I mean, we'll cover what comes out constantly of the assassination attempt. It's going to be a constant coverage, maybe even tomorrow night, maybe Tuesday, one of those two. We'll do a Breakaway USA live that'll include a panel once again of multiple people discussing campaigning strategies 2024. Of course, this week is the Republican National Convention, which I believe Trump just arrived in Milwaukee around the time that I began this stream an hour and a half ago. He has delayed nothing. There was even rumors. I don't believe it's true, but there was rumors that he was on the golf course earlier today. So we're going to cover the RNC this week. I'll likely be going live multiple evenings this week, covering different speeches, things that people are saying, what's going on, maybe even during the day. So make sure to not miss a minute of any of this. You guys like this video, like the channel wherever you're watching from, retweet, share it, subscribe. And if you're subscribed on YouTube, ring that notification bell, hit it to all, because we both know that ScrewTube doesn't like you seeing my videos. They don't like it. It's too good. It's too good. They know that this is going to be bigly across the internet. They know, and they don't want it. They keep it down because they don't want people hearing the truth. They don't like the truth at all. So Trump did not make it to UFC Fight Night last night. He did not. That was a rumor. Ended up being unconfirmed. But yeah, so everybody make sure that you guys are following everything like that. And especially, like I said, if you're on Twitter, please retweet right now. I'd appreciate that. Vice President Trump, the black woman, I see agitation rising, posted that on Twitter. I can't bring my Twitter comments up on my stream right now, but thank you for commenting on that on Twitter. So, but I want to get into a different story, talk about something different. This was something that I actually had planned to talk about last night, or not last night, 3 nights ago, whenever the Biden press conference was. And I never got to it because we've just had so much to talk about. And so these are a little bit longer videos, but I think these are interesting. And as I discussed a lot earlier about the dangerous rhetoric from Democrats in power surrounding conservatives, I find it very important that not only do they speak very, very ill, and not just ill, they blatantly lie about conservatives. Racist, sexist, homophobe, literally Hitler, Nazi, fascist, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on of derogatory terms to falsely describe conservatives as. But not only do they do that, they also take away the ability to respond in many instances while they're in positions of power. And just earlier this week, Daily Wire editor emeritus Ben Shapiro testified to Congress on just Wednesday for a House Judiciary Committee hearing on the alleged conspiracy to suppress conservative voices under the guise of, quote, brand safety. A report was released by the committee early Wednesday morning outlining how member organizations of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, or GARM, colluded to demonetize disfavored online content. The report also uncovers apparent political bias by those driving the effort. And of course, this is just something I talked about. ScrewTube doesn't want people to see videos like mine. That's why you should like, subscribe, comment, share, all that fun stuff, which is what I always say, all that fun stuff, because it's fun stuff to do. Ring that notification bell, hit it to all. The report also uncovers apparent political bias by those driving the effort, with the founder of GARM privately espousing, quote, anti-democratic views of fundamental American freedoms, including free speech. Shapiro's testimony exposed the political motivations behind the censorship and its impact on media freedom, and the failed attempts to silence outlets like the Daily Wire, Fox News, Breitbart, as well as figures such as Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Donald Trump, and Kevin Phares. Ty Smith, Modern Renaissance Man, everybody at Breakaway USA. We've all felt it. And so the entirety of his testimony was like 3.5 hours long. It was pretty long because he had all these different questionings, and there's a lot of great moments. But there are two major points that I want to discuss. And the first is his opening statement, and the second is his spar with Eric Swalwell. Both are about 5 minutes each. We're going to watch both. I might cut in a little bit to talk about different parts of things that he says. I got to admit, I have not watched the entirety of the opening statement. I got enough to know that it was worth all of us watching for educational reasons. And then I did watch the Eric Swalwell portion, and not only will you be laughing, it's just a great watch. And so I think this might lighten the mood and also give us a little bit of hope in uncertain times. So let's take a look and listen at the opening statements from Ben Shapiro to Congress just earlier this week.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Nadler, members of the committee, good morning. First of all, Ranking Member Nadler, I appreciate the kind words about our business. It's very kind of you. And also, I assume that we'd be doing a lot better without the institutional obstacles that I'm about to discuss. We're in the midst of a trust crisis in the world of media, which is because so many in the legacy media have lied in order to preserve left-leaning narratives. To take just the most recent example, we were told by the legacy media that President Biden was just fine. For years, anyone who questioned his health and mental fitness was trafficking in cheap fakes. And then President Biden went out and engaged in a full-scale mental collapse on stage in front of hundreds of millions of people. So we can see why Americans, at least Americans who are not Democrats, do not trust the media. The question isn't really why the legacy media have lost Americans' trust. We know that answer. The question is why, despite that loss of trust, the legacy media continue to gain share in the advertising market. And the answer is simple. There is, in fact, an informal pressure system created by Democratic legislators, this White House, legacy media, advertisers, and pseudo-objective brand safety organizations. That system guarantees that advertising dollars flow only to left-wing media brands. Let me explain how this works. When a conservative competitor to the legacy media arises, members of that legacy media and their political allies rush to paint such competitors as dangerous. The commentator Kara Swisher of the New York Times, for example, told the head of YouTube that my videos at Daily Wire were a, quote, gateway drug that would lead children, including her own teenage son, to watch neo-Nazi content. Never mind the yarmulke. Elected Democrats pick up that same messaging. In 2017, Senator Dianne Feinstein told lawyers at Facebook, Google, and Twitter, quote, you created these platforms and now they're being misused, and you have to be the ones to do something about it, or we will. Social media companies react to incentive structures, including threats. They've responded by adopting the standards of third-party left-wing informational safety groups like the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, or GARM. GARM purportedly sets brand safety standards, objective standards by which advertisers and platforms can supposedly determine just what sort of content ought to be deemed safe for advertising. In reality, GARM acts as a cartel. Its members account for 90% of ad spending in the United States, almost $1 trillion. In other words, if you're not getting ad dollars from GARM members, it's nearly impossible to run an ad-based business. And if you're not following their preferred political narratives, the ones that Kara Swisher and Dianne Feinstein would follow, you will not be deemed brand safe. Your business will be throttled. We at Daily Wire have experienced this firsthand. In 2017, after Senator Feinstein made her threats to bring the weight of government down on social media platforms, Daily Wire YouTube channel saw a 1,000% increase in content enforcements over a 2-year period. Since 2021, after Democrat officials further turned up the heat on social media companies, my personal...
I'm so sorry. My sound was out. At least the video, it wasn't the video. Okay. So thank you for saying that. You can kind of read my lips. I appreciate that. Well, I'll restate what I said. I'm sorry about that. But essentially what I was saying is that the point is that the reason why we should be watching this, the reason why we should be seeing all of this, I'm sorry to cut in, but it's the fact that we need to understand exactly what is happening, the rhyme to the reason of conservative censorship. Is it all because Mark Zuckerberg is an absolutely conservative hater? Maybe. Or could it simply be the fact that companies respond, like Shapiro said, to incentive structures. If you have a Congress that says, if you don't stop this kind of content, then we are going to come after your business, then they're going to censor what we have to say. I discussed in the brief moment that my microphone was out, I discussed the fact that I was shadow banned. My January of this year, I had my highest view count ever. Then February, March, April, May, all of those months combined did not reach the amount that I had gotten in January. And then June, all of a sudden, I start getting views again. Didn't change the amount of content I was posting, didn't change the type of content I was posting. It was because I was shadow banned. That's what happened. So the reason why we need to watch this testimony, why we need to watch all of this, is because of how important it is to understand why these things, like I said, the rhyme to the reason of conservative censorship. Let's keep watching.
Facebook page has seen an over 80% drop in impressions. Or take Joe Rogan. When Joe said that he had taken ivermectin after getting COVID, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki pressured Spotify to take action, stating, quote, "We want every platform to be doing more to call out mis- and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information." Spotify complied. Spotify, of course, works with GARM. So what are the brand safety standards that GARM uses? The standards begin with inarguable things that we've heard from the other witnesses, like preventing distribution of child sexual abuse material or stopping terrorism. But GARM doesn't draw the line at what is criminal, abusive, or dangerous. Their standards also include restrictions on hate speech, harassment, misinformation, or my personal favorite, insensitive, irresponsible, and harmful treatment of debated sensitive social issues. Those criteria are highly subjective in theory, and they are purely partisan in practice. For example, last year, Daily Wire host Matt Walsh was fully demonetized on YouTube, a GARM member. Why? For quote-unquote misgendering, which to GARM is to say that men are not women. Perfectly obvious facts now run afoul of GARM's censorship standards. Companies targeted by GARM, like the Daily Wire, Breitbart, Fox News, and so many others, reach hundreds of millions of people with opinions and beliefs long established as within the mainstream of American conservative thought. GARM and its members have no respect for the beliefs of those people. They would like them marginalized or squashed. It's time to stand up for the First Amendment in this Congress. Congress can do so in two ways. First, Congress must investigate the informal and perhaps formal arrangements between censorship cartels like GARM and executive branch agencies. The Daily Wire has already filed a federal lawsuit against the State Department for allegedly doing just this. Second, Congress can itself stop engaging in violation of free speech principles. 2 weeks ago, writing in dissent in Murphy versus Missouri, Justice Alito condemned what he called sophisticated and coercive government campaigns against free speech. Members of this committee have engaged in precisely such campaigns. When Congressman Schiff speaks about targeting social media companies that must be, quote, pulled and dragged into this era of corporate responsibility because they are too tolerant of misinformation, he knows what he is doing. He is participating in a sophisticated, coercive campaign against free speech. When Congresswoman Jayapal blames social media for placing America at the, quote, precipice of a democratic crisis and calls on them to target they deem hate groups, she also knows what she is doing. She is participating in a sophisticated, coercive campaign against free speech. When Congressman Hank Johnson says, quote, "We need a constitutional amendment to allow the legislature to control the so-called free speech rights of corporations," he also knows what he is doing. We all know what these government actors, but some people in this room, are doing. You're using the tacit threat of government action to compel private companies to throttle viewpoints you don't particularly like. The First Amendment was not designed to enable workarounds by elected officials. It was directed at Congress, at you, and you're abdicating your fundamental duty when you exert pressure on private companies to censor speech. Some in this room have been doing just that for years. We in the non-legacy media have been feeling the effects. In the name of the Constitution and in the name of democracy, this should stop.
So here's the genius of just this opening statement. So obviously he ends up going on. We're going to watch the Eric Swalwell interaction as well. But the absolute genius in this is that he calls out. He doesn't come out the gate and say, like I said earlier, he doesn't come out the gate and say it's Mark Zuckerberg's fault. It's all these other people's fault. No, he comes out the gate and says it's your fault, Congress. It's the legislature's fault. It's the people in power's fault. You guys designed a threatening, almost mob-like racketeering job on censorship for social media companies to the point of which they're causing this. And so now if anybody comes out and tries to say, no, we're not, that's not our fault or anything, it's just going to make them look more guilty. That's kind of the genius of what Ben did in that opening statement. And it's very, very smart and honestly set up well for instances such as this, in which he spars with Eric Swalwell. the man who got caught cheating with a Chinese spy. And so let's take a look and listen to some of this interaction during Ben's the same congressional testimony from just last Wednesday, in which he absolutely destroys Eric Swalwell in this. And Eric Swalwell, I don't know why, but looks like a creepy man that would be a part of like pageants. Like he looks like he would be a pageant coach, and also accused of touching the young women that he was supposed to be coaching. That's what I think Eric Swalwell looks like. Obviously, for legal reasons, I have no idea whether or not that's true. But I will say that's what he looks like.
You want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency.
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely.
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
So
they
if
can do so for hundreds
pay-
of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to, and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this. Is why is this is about conservative censorship, and yet now this has become a debate about. And this is kind of almost what I think Swalwell was trying to do. Is he was trying to make it a debate, not even about, because Ben backed all of these Democrats into a corner, saying you guys are running a racketeering hit job against these social media companies, making it so that they have to censor us. You're not helping anything. You're kind of. Eric Swalwell was now in a corner, and so he had to make the debate about something else in which he thought he could maybe win. Oh, we're gonna try to make Ben look like a racist by doing this, and then or something like that. And that's when I get this question: isn't the ag comment really racist? Kind of. It's more so. I mean, in a convoluted way, yes. He obviously nobody ever actually mentions a specific race in this. But he is playing off the stereotype of that illegal immigrants tend to be field workers in agriculture, and thus usually of Hispanic descent within that. And so that's what it seems like Eric Swalwell was playing off of, and Ben is obviously kind of destroying him through that. Let's keep watching.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state by state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure. I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage. What about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I'm perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements.
See, this is why Ben is beating his ass, is because what happened was Eric Swalwell was, like I said, was backed into the corner. And so Eric Swalwell was like, I'm just going to go down the list and see what it's just like what I said earlier. When it comes to everything about why political violence is happening, when you constantly label your opponent as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, ism, all of these things, Hitler, fascist, whatever, then eventually you're going to get political violence. But that's exactly what what Eric Swalwell is trying to do. He's going down the list of the things that are technically like not allowed based on policies or a part of quote unquote Project 2025, whatever. And Eric Swalwell is trying to call Ben racist and xenophobic with the immigration one. He gets to abortion. He's going to call him sexist, probably with that. Then he's trying to point out that, oh, well, now Ben is homophobic because he believes that being gay is a sin. He's trying to do all that instead of actually addressing the issue, which is the censorship of conservative opinion.
Results make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a seventh grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Because we found some receipts. Get out of here. We found some receipts as if like you didn't already have this sitting behind you. This isn't a TV that this just got pulled up, Eric Swalwell. This is literally sitting behind you when you asked the question. You idiot.
Sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
I'm
That's
sure
true.
there's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation, but the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to Alvin Bragg. He was supposed to be here this week, and he's not coming. And Hunter Biden was supposed to testify. Now he's not testifying. We were supposed to have votes on articles of impeachment, and we didn't. And again, we're just wondering, you guys write great press releases, but the payoff seems to never come. And so I guess we will keep waiting, and we'll do hearings like this. And
Wait. So Eric Swalwell, first he loses from Ben's opening statement. Then he loses in his attempt to gotcha, like Ryan Mack pointed out. He loses his attempt to gotcha Ben Shapiro. And so then he starts going after the Republicans in the room and the way that the Republicans are organizing Congress. Eric Swalwell just keeps taking the L, swallowing it, and saying, "Thank you, sir. Can I have another?" Like a gimp or a masochist.
And finally, Chairman, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, and that's a restriction on speech, as you have recognized before. But you can yell theater in a crowded fire, and you all can continue to do that all you want, and we'll just waste the American people's time.
Gentleman's time has expired, and I remind him of the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging.
And then McClintock gets him right there. The first rule of holes: when you're in one, stop digging. And that's exactly what I just said, essentially, is he keeps taking the L, and he's like, oh man, I'm going to take another. I'm going to take another. I'm going to take another. And he just keeps digging himself further and further into oblivion. The biggest loser in Congress, Eric Swalwell. Everybody congratulate Eric Swalwell from being the biggest loser in Congress and not losing weight or anything like that. I'm sure Jerry Nadler could use some help with that. Or if we go outside of Congress, we could look at people like J.B. Pritzker from my state, or we could even go to Chris Christie. We could make it bipartisan. Bipartisan biggest losers. Let's do J.B. Pritzker and Chris Christie. But if you guys like that, as I always say, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, everything like that. I very much appreciate you guys watching. Let's get to some comments here, but that's pretty much all I had planned for today. I'm happy that the Biden interview was able to make its way into this. He did wreck him. You can yell fire. Nothing in the Constitution says you can't. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's actually, you're not able to, because that creates a level of panic, an undue panic. I forgot the exact Supreme Court case that is a part of, but it actually is a restriction on free speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Here's how I see it. If supporting Trump and being anti-woke makes me a racist, homophobic fascist, then I'm a racist, homophobic fascist. That is what I'll be. I will never conform to the left. And that's what I say. But I always try to clarify too. It's because racist, homophobic, fascist does not mean racist, homophobic, fascist anymore. They've changed the meaning of those words by diluting their meaning by calling everything that. It's like, okay, I reference the great work of art from Disney Pixar, The Incredibles. There is a quote from The Incredibles, and I'm paraphrasing it because I don't remember it exactly, but it's something to the effect of, if everyone's super, then no one's super. The idea that if everybody has superpowers, then no one really has superpowers. It's like it's an inflation on the thing. If everybody has $1,000, then the price of goods goes up by 1,000. If everybody is racist, homophobic, fascist, then no one is really racist, homophobic, fascist. Those words no longer have meaning, or at least the meaning that they have is not what they actually mean. And that's the way our world works now. Because we've allowed for words not to have meaning, people not to have genders, babies not to actually be babies, they're just fetuses. For citizenship not to mean anything. For the American dollar to constantly lose value. And thus, we devalue ourselves and our country. And it's time to take it back. We can reverse all that. We just got to start by giving things meaning, assigning it value, and making things mean something again. That's just my 2 cents. I hope you guys take it for what it is. Everybody, that's all I got for you today, but I really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget, as always, to like this video. Check out Speechless Kev everywhere. Like, follow, share, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. Until next time, keep an eye this week for more Speechless. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you for watching Speechless.